You're being so disingenuous. Because the truth is, they were both banned from the last World Championships because they failed a sex test, which is rightly said. Fine, but they had a chance to appeal, but they didn't. They took the ban. They accepted the findings of the ban, or they would have appealed it. That's the bottom line, which means they're male. They've got a Y chromosome.
Right. It seems like Cenk Uygur's new strategy is to simply deny that the trans issue even exists in our current politics. You know, men are not in women's sports. The crazy stuff being taught in our school, it's just not happening. Why are you distracting from the real issues that affect Americans? When in reality, I think he recognizes a lot of people are pissed off about this type of stuff. They think it's weird. You don't have to be a conservative to think that men destroying women in, let's say, Olympics boxing, which was debated in this recent Piers Morgan debate, is a little bit ridiculous, right? And Riley Gaines and Michael Knowles both collectively tore into him for it, and we're going to react to it today. So folks, if you enjoy the content, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. And that said, let's just get into this recent panel because it's pretty interesting to watch.
Competing in the women's boxing is something that is inflamed most Americans. Now, they are. We're going to come to that in a moment. But my point is, you don't think these issues matter. I can tell you they matter. People do care about this stuff. They do care, actually, about tampons being put into male locker rooms and restrooms. They care about biological males going into women's dressing rooms and so on. This stuff matters to people. It matters to parents, I can tell you.
Look, I want you to run the campaign on tampons. I can't wait. Okay, we're going to run on paid family leave. We're going to run on protecting women's rights. We're going to protect the average American worker. She's gone populist. It's fantastic. You run a hateful campaign about how much you hate trans people. And my message to you is bye, bye, bye. Okay, you guys have no chance running that campaign.
We've already...
Okay, so first of all, you say Kamala Harris is running on paid family leave. No, she's not. In fact, she's not running on anything, Cenk. She's not running on anything. Go to her campaign website right now. You will not find a single policy. That is number one. Number two, of course, the left claims that this LGBT radicalism issue does not impact elections. I would call into question, look at Glenn Youngkin in 2021. He flipped a deep blue state in Virginia as a Republican. Why? Largely because of that issue, right? The stuff that was being taught in schools. Ron DeSantis in 2022 won Florida by almost 20 points. That used to be a swing state. Part of it was why? Because of the culture war issues, the breadbasket ones that are just easy for conservatives to attack because you guys are just so ridiculous on them. So I strongly disagree. I think that obviously the main focus should be immigration, crime, and the economy from the Trump campaign. But yes, the fact that especially Tim Walz, the VP, has endorsed and embraced some of this insane stuff when it comes to the stuff being taught in schools, and you know, this recent Olympics boxing controversy is sort of a poster child for their ticket. Yeah, that's not popular with Americans. Just spoiler alert there.
Well, hang on, Michael. Hang on, Michael. I just want to say that when you say you guys, I have to remind you once again, Cenk, I'm not actually an identifying conservative. So
come on, Piers. After that intro?
No, you keep trying that trick.
After that intro where you framed Tim Walz as totally radical left? His policies, the core policies that he passed are all over 70% in popularity. You framed him as a radical. Are you kidding me?
Tim Walz is a progressive, radical, left-wing guy. He is. Now, Michael Knowles, let me bring you in here.
Is America radical left-wing, Piers?
Let me bring in Michael.
Is America radical left-wing? Because all of his policies poll over 70%.
Really? Driver's licenses for illegal immigrants, which he signed, that polls over 70%? I'd like to see that poll. I really like to see it. You know, Cenk keeps making this straw man that, like, Republicans don't like Tim Walz because he supports paid family leave. No, that's not. I haven't seen a single attack ad about that, right? It's about the fact he embraces far left social policies, okay? BLM riots. Do those have over 70% approval? Does it, right? Does burning down Minneapolis? The majority of Americans support that. No, you're obfuscating, you're distracting from what the Republicans are actually attacking Tim Walz and Kamala Harris on.
Well, let's see.
Thank you for saying that America's radical left wing.
Maybe you'll be right. Maybe you'll be right. I don't think you will. But I'm not saying that as someone who's a conservative. But Michael Knowles, you are a self-identifying conservative. Cenk Cenk doesn't think any of this stuff matters. None of the gender stuff matters. None of the ID stuff matters. None of the tampons in boys' dressing rooms matter. None of that matters, apparently.
Well, Cenk challenges us to run a campaign on gender ideology in public schools. We already have done that, and it's been pretty successful. That was the Glenn Youngkin campaign that turned a purple and really pretty blue Commonwealth Virginia red. Ron DeSantis ran for re-election in large part on that issue. He soared to a re-election victory. You mentioned there's global outrage over the unfairness of transgenderism, even in the Olympics. So it's an important issue. The fact that Governor Walz not only put the tampons in the boys' bathroom in the public schools, but also came out and embraced the radical trans policies for little kids that is tearing families apart, that's putting kids on really dark paths that lead to higher rates of anxiety, depression, suicidality, all sorts of dark stuff, sterility, earlier death, the list goes on. That is not going to play very well in the middle of the country. Now, I think Cenk makes a good point in distinguishing between the left versus right debate and the establishment versus populist debate. The problem right now, though, is that the establishment is quite leftist. Don't forget the people pushing abortion up until the moment of birth, the people pushing for transing the kids, the people pushing to totally open up the border, the people embracing the campus intifada going on campuses around the country. That's the establishment Democrat Party going all the way up to Joe Biden. And Kamala Harris is an establishment figure. Nobody's more establishment than Joe Biden. The guy's been in politics since 1972 at the national level. And Kamala Harris was brought in just to pinch hit for him because his brain has turned to applesauce. So she is playing both of these things right now, but she's playing both because the establishment is so left-wing. And she has raised a lot of money, and that's impressive. But she hasn't really done it because, as we've all observed, including Kevin, she hasn't really said anything since she became the nominee. She doesn't do press conferences. The one or two times she's spoken off the cuff, it hasn't gone very well. She's not really good on her feet. She hasn't articulated much of a policy vision until today, making an unforced error, picking this radical leftist lunatic out in Minnesota. So, yes, she's made a lot of money because the Democrat establishment was keeping some money on the line when they were trying to push Joe Biden out. If she can stay in the basement of the White House until November, maybe she wins. But if she has to go out and defend these policies, it's not going to play in Pennsylvania. She came out on Jimmy Fallon's show, said she wants to end fracking forever, once and for all. That's not going to play well. She came out and said everybody needs to be woke. That is not going to play well in Michigan, in Arizona, in Nevada, in Wisconsin. So if she speaks, as I think eventually she's going to have to do, we're going to see whether Cenk or I are right. And the spoiler alert is, I am.
Piers, can I say something?
All right, I want to play a clip from, just to segue to this Olympic scandal as it's being depicted. I want to play a clip of Donald Trump talking about it.
And I will keep men out of women's sports, if that's okay. If Kamala Harris gets in, the travesty that is taking place at the Paris Olympics will come to America when we host the Los Angeles Olympics. And by the way, which I was president, we happened to get it. I was the president. I also got you a thing called the World Cup, which is coming very soon.
Well, the two.
And by the way, again, let me just say, we have empirical evidence that the culture war stuff in regards to trans and all that is not a winning issue for Democrats. Okay, we have seen, Michael brought it up, I'll bring it up again though, we've seen Republicans flip deep blue states off of the backs of this issue. And so, is it something maybe we should make the whole campaign about? Not necessarily, because again, I think crime, immigration, the economy, these are the biggest national issues, but don't ignore it. I would say it would be a mistake to ignore it, honestly. I almost thought that the RNC should have at least done like 1 to 2 speeches about this stuff, but now that Kamala is the candidate and Tim Walz, this is an easy attack vector, and it's something most Americans, even in the middle, think is a little bit crazy. So,
fighters at the center of the Olympic gender furore are now guaranteed to be on the podium for the women's boxing in Paris. Some, however, feel they shouldn't even be competing, given the intense speculation around whether they're actually biologically, genetically male. Joining me now is the former NCAA swimmer and host of Outkicks Gains for Girls podcast, Riley Gaines. So, Riley, the issue here is not that they're trans women competing against women. The issue here is that they have XY chromosomes, is what has been claimed and made clear by other governing bodies in women's boxing who have banned them from competing in the last World Championships. So a slightly different case to the issue of trans athletes competing in women's sport, but nonetheless just as pertinent.
You hit the nail on the head, Piers. And to very briefly address the comment made previously that this campaign is a campaign surrounding being anti-trans, being against trans people, let's be very, very clear before I even say anything. What we are talking about as it pertains to the Olympics, or as Michael Knowles said, I mean, the gender ideology movement as a whole, it is not anti-anything. It is pro-parental rights, it is pro the safeguarding of children, and it is pro-women's rights. You can check any Gallup poll. That is something that majority of Americans, really globally, majority of people across the world agree upon. But yes, Piers, as it pertains to these boxers in the Olympics, they failed the chromosomal testing that every athlete, I believe, has to take. The requirement is that women have to have XX chromosomes. These athletes failed. Here's what we know. I listened to the press conference yesterday put on in Paris by the IBA, and this is what we know. Both boxers were initially subjected to a chromosomal test by an independent laboratory in Istanbul after the IBA received complaints from coaches and competitors during the 2022 Women's World Boxing Championships. Both athletes were then retested in India again during the next year during the same Women's World Boxing Championships in 2023 to clarify and confirm prior results. This is when both athletes were then found to have XY chromosomes. Both boxers were informed of the results of the test in writing. Both boxers were given the opportunity to appeal the findings to the Court of Arbitration for Sports. The IBA even offered to pay for the majority of any cost that would allow both boxers to appeal. One male athlete, he did not appeal the decision. Imane Khelif, I would say the athlete that has received the most prominence from Algeria here, he appealed the decision, but then ultimately withdrew the appeal. That's what this is. This isn't an argument that is meant to be hateful. I mean, it's not even opinionated.
But Riley, you watched that whole press conference. I didn't get the feeling it was just the word of one raging Russian loon, because I heard a lot of non-Russian accents getting involved as well. It doesn't change the fact, as he said, they were found to have XY chromosomes in a test. They had a chance to appeal that to avoid being banned, and they chose not to appeal it. That is so damning. And even if it isn't, even if it was all terribly unfair, as Cenk and Uygur would like us to believe, do another damn test then. Show the world you're actually biological women. And there's a reason they're not doing it. Riley.
Absolutely. We see a lot of information being pushed out there that these are just cisgender women with elevated levels of testosterone. The IBA made it very clear they did not do testosterone level testing. They never did that, not even one time. We don't know what these athletes' testosterone levels are. What they did do was test the karyotypes of these athletes. The only requirement was that these athletes had XX chromosomes, and they failed the test. No, they haven't come out and explicitly said these athletes have XY chromosomes, but that's because the Algerian and Taiwanese Olympic Committee have refused the IBA to release these results. I mean, the requirement was have XX chromosomes, and they failed that. Therefore, let's use intuitive thinking here. Let's use our brains. We all have them. That means they have a Y chromosome. And if you have a Y chromosome, you are a male. I mean, do we need to send like half of the population back to sixth grade biology?
You just admitted that there is no such test.
What?
They just admitted there is no such test. And they failed. The requirement was two XX chromosomes, and they failed. And they failed. Because of the Taiwanese and the Algerian Olympic Committee, they're not allowed to explicitly say these athletes have XY.
You know what? Go
watch the 30-minute. It's a 30-minute, very brief.
You're going to keep saying everyone's lying, but the answer is just do another test and show us. And there's a reason they're not doing it. Let me bring in Michael. Michael, I think
you can make up anything. You can make up anything and then demand a test.
They were literally banned from the World Championship.
True. So let's.
Yeah. Again. They were allowed into the Olympics. They were banned from the World Championships for this very reason. Okay, so to pretend like we're just making this up is not true. But then on top of that, okay, they're intersex. Their actual chromosomes are in question. Use your common sense. You saw them in boxing. They're bashing everyone's heads in, right? So it's like, oh, they're just really talented boxers. I think, come on. come on, use your common sense. But yeah, I mean, on top of that, I don't know what Cenk is even ranting about here, because clearly there was a reason why they were barred from other sporting competitions for women's boxing, but the Olympics allowed them in, and now you're seeing the results, and he's just saying it's all a lie? It's all not true? I don't understand.
They were banned from the World Championship.
By the IBA, a bunch of lunatics who've now been decertified.
So why didn't they appeal?
Because, not just because of this, because they make up things one after another. This guy's totally... Right. So, guys, look, we have to have the bare minimum of agreeing on facts and evidence. And Riley just admitted there, and you've admitted, Piers, that there is no such test, that it's never been produced publicly. You're taking the word of a guy who seems to be a total raving lunatic, no matter where he comes from. Okay.
So why didn't they?
So take another test. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Take one. Whatever country you want. I don't know. What's the most left-wing progressive country in the world, socially speaking? Canada? You know, go take it in Canada. Go take it in Western Europe or something. You know?
The big thing is, I've accused you of a... Hold on. So your big thing is, we accused of her of a thing that doesn't exist, and now she has to prove that it isn't true. Well, that's an absurd standard. I could accuse you of 1,000 things and demand that you prove that it's not true.
This is where you're being so disingenuous.
When did you stop beating your wife,
I'm going to bring Michael in, but hang on a second, Cenk. You're being so disingenuous. Because the truth is, they were both banned from the last World Championships because they failed a sex test, which is rightly said. Fine, but they had a chance to appeal, but they didn't. They took the ban. They accepted the findings of the ban, or they would have appealed it. That's the bottom line, which means they're male. They've got a Y chromosome.
Right.
Yes, Riley.
80% of the female athletes at the Olympics.
Particulars here.
Hang on, let Riley go first, then Michael.
80% of the female athletes at the Olympics are in favor of a simple cheek swab to test sex. Over 80% of the athletes, female athletes.
Takes 2 seconds. It takes 2 seconds. You do literally a cheek swab. That's it. And then you establish, are they male or female? Michael, I think you've got a more overarching solution to this.
I do, actually. But before we even get to that, which I think was simple enough and it worked a quarter century ago, I have this question for Cenk, because it seems like we're getting so bogged down in the particulars. What exactly are this fighter's chromosomes, and what leagues are credible in ascertaining this question? But you just said, Cenk, that you would have no problem with your daughter engaging in a sport, even we're discussing a combat sport, with someone who has male biology. And what people find so disturbing about the Imane Khelif story, I think, is the notion that a man is punching a woman in the face. So if you say you have no problem with this, with men, people with the biology of a man, even fighting women, even playing sports with women, do you think there is any circumstance in which it's okay for a man to punch a woman in the face?
Yeah, so I'm glad you're asking the question, because I said it, and let me double down and clarify so that no one's confused about it. So my cutoff is high school. The reason why I fought with the left is beyond high school, especially in contact sports, you are risking not only the women in that ring, but you're also risking trans rights. Because the minute that a trans woman knocks out a biological female in a way that is significant, right, and does real damage, trans rights are going to be set back 50
Hold on, though. I want to be clear, Cenk.
And I don't want that. I want to protect the trans community. Hold on, can I just answer the question?
You're saying,
hold on.
I just want a little clarification.
Guys, in high school,
you're saying an 18-year-old man should be able to punch an 18-year-old woman in the face. 18 is fine. 19, that's when it gets
boxing is there in high school? What are you talking about? In high school, there are no contact sports like boxing.
There's wrestling. I mean, you know, that's kind of a thing, you know.
And MMA. If you're talking about wrestling, that's about as much of a contact sport as there is. So in high school, look, guys, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. First of all, this affects 7 people. You're being ridiculous. And the reason you're talking about that is because you don't want to talk about higher wages and health insurance for everyone. But if you want to talk about high school, what you have to do in order to let me just goddamn it answer the question. Can I just answer the goddamn question? So in high school, you're trying to find 7 people that you think is a problem. Oh, okay, apparently I can't answer the goddamn question. Okay, listen. what you're doing is you're saying, in order to find the 7 trans girls out there that are so dominating these sports, which is not even true. Leidecker is dominating swimming way more than any trans woman is on any sport.
They're literally
I'm not going to test her testosterone. I'm not going to test all that stuff. But in terms of the high school athletes, I'm not going to go and ask all the state officials and government creeps to go check the genitalia of our daughters so that they could ascertain whether they're trans or not. This is a trans witch hunt, and I'm not going to stand for it.
You don't have to check the genitalia. You can just check the birth certificate, right? Imagine how much simpler it would all be if the gender you were assigned at birth is your gender, right? That's all you have to. This is, oh, we're gonna go look at high school girls' skirts. No, actually, you just look at the documents. Oh, but wait, no, but you need to be able to change it. You can identify as this. That's exactly the problem, okay? But that's it, folks. There was the Cenk Uygur meltdown, I guess you could call it, over the Olympics on Piers Morgan. Let me know your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe, follow me on X and all of my social medias, link in the description. And until next time, God bless and peace.